Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Repeateron, and today we're going to be doing the advanced guide to Field Medic. I haven't done one of these in a little while, but I would like to get back into this series, explaining what to use for more advanced players trying to play on the harder difficulties, and having more of a budget for buying weapons. So any weapons are accepted, and we're going to be going over two specific builds for Medic, because Medic really only has kind of 2 or 3-ish builds. So the very first build is going to be the multiplayer build, where you are focused on healing. So for this, we're going to take Symbiotic Healing at level 5. We get an increase in our own health by 25%, which is pretty nice. Whenever we heal our teammates, we get 10% of that heal back to us. So if you're keeping the team alive, you're keeping yourself alive. Great strategy. At level 10, we're going to go with Adrenaline Shot. This makes it so all of your healing increases players' movement by 10% for 5 seconds. This can stack up to 30%. So if you hit somebody with 3 darts within 5 seconds, it'll stack up to 30%. Bonus movement speed is absolutely amazing. Everybody wants bonus movement speed. It's one of the best things in this game that you can do. You can also use this even on yourself with medic grenades. So the gas from medic grenades will apply this to you, as well as if you're running Airborne Agent at level 25, it will also apply it to you. And that is one of the best ways to use Adrenaline Shot. At level 15, we're going to take Focus Injections, making it so every time we heal somebody, they get 5% more damage. Up to 20%. Again, pretty basic ability. We're going to be trying to get our teammates to be as tanky, as strong, as fast, and as not dead as possible with this build, because that's what it's all about to play a team medic. And then at level 20, we are going with Coagulant Booster. This just makes it so every time you heal somebody, they get 10% more resilience. So they get 10% damage reduction up to 30%, making everybody on your team even tankier, which is great. And then at level 25, we would go with Airborne Agent. This just makes it so we pretty much become the medic grenade. We start spraying out gas during Z time, which will heal all allies, hurt all enemies, and it just makes you a very safe spot to be. It's like quite literally just a safe spot for you as medic. If your teammates group around you and Z time triggers, well, you'll heal everybody. You'll keep all the small Zeds away from them. You'll poison all the large Zeds, and you'll apply all of your benefits with everything running on the left side. That's a pretty straightforward medic build, and it can apply to either. I'm not going to be going into the game just yet because I would like to explain the solo medic build, which is what I'm also going to run. There is kind of a hybrid build, and I will kind of get into that a little bit after we talk about the solo medic build. But the solo medic build is exactly what it seems like. You're going to be playing this probably if you're playing solo, or if you want to mix and match with the hybrid loadout. So with this, we're just going to run everything on the right side for similar reasons. We're going to run Resilience, which makes it so every 1% of health lost gets you 1% more damage resistance, up to 60%. So essentially, if you're at 40% HP, then you have 60% damage reduction, and it can't go any higher than that. That's pretty good, because it makes it so you really can't get one-shot by anything. Well, with a few exceptions, like the Patriarch's Rockets can one-shot you. But something like the King Fleshpound running up and punching you won't be able to kill you, even on 6-man Hell on Earth. You still won't die from one hit. I think even from a full combo from him, he cannot kill you, which is really useful. He'll knock you really low, but he won't kill you. At level 10, we're going to take Combatant Doctor. This makes it so we get our magazines of all of our weapons increased by 50%. These only apply to medic weapons. And we get 10% passive movement speed, which is really great for us. I mean, you're mostly going to take this one for the bonus movement speed. The extra magazines are kind of nice, but mostly the extra movement speed is what you really want. At level 15, we're going to take Acidic Rounds. This inflicts poison damage to enemies, dealing damage over time. This can do an okay amount of damage, and it can disrupt large Zeds, which is kind of nice, like Skrakes and Fleshpounds from running up and hitting you. But it's mostly like we just take it because we're not playing with a team. Otherwise, you would pretty much always want to take focus injections. And then we're going to go with Battle Surgeon. This just gives us 20% more damage with our perk weapons. Pretty straightforward. We get 20% more damage with medic weapons, which for most medic weapons is not the most. And then at level 25, you can really pick between Airborne Agent and Sedative. Both work really well. Sedative is a more offensive perk during Z time. Airborne Agent is a more defensive perk. Both work well even in solo. So yeah, pretty much right side for solo, left side for multiplayer, unless you want to mix and match a little bit. Pretty much it's going to be these two that you can mix and match, I would say, and potentially Zedative. Zedative, again, if you want to be more aggressive with your loadout, but you kind of got to know what you're doing. Whereas Airborne Agent is always going to be good, so I almost always recommend Airborne Agent over Zedative. These two could be switched, though. You could run Resilience and be a tank for your team. I mean, you already are a tank as medic, but you can be more of a tank, being able to just know that you can't be pretty much one comboed by something, assuming something just doesn't flat out one-shot you like the Patriarch's rockets. And you could run Combatant Doctor just for the extra ammo capacity and the extra movement speed to yourself. This allows you to move around the map more. This is much better for certain maps. If you know that there is some really good holdout points, like if you're playing Containment Station, where you can easily aim down, or your team can easily aim down those hallways, and you just want to be able to run, from one side of the team to the other to heal people, then Combatant Doctor is pretty good for that. Where you wouldn't necessarily need Adrenaline Shot. Adrenaline Shot is still really good though, so let's get into a match and talk about Medic's weapons, kind of what the general strategy is for Medic. It's going to be a bit different since I'm playing this solo just for convenience purposes. We do start out with the Medic Pistol. The Medic Pistol is a fantastic little sidearm to get at the start. You can one-shot headshot any of these little guys on any difficulty, which is really useful. You want to be trying to aim for headshots as much as possible. In solo, it's not as necessary if you're running acidic rounds, just because of that. And pretty much you're going to want to be doing just what everybody else does for the first couple rounds. Try to survive and see if you can find any extra ammo, any extra guns laying around, because that will really help you as medic. You're also going to want to be trying to heal allies too with your healing darts. Try to use that as much as possible because your healing darts will pay for themselves. Even an empty medic pistol is still useful. Now, really, any empty medic weapon is still useful to some extent, some more so than others. Alright, now the first loadout I would recommend to anybody wanting to play medic is this build with the HRG heal thrower and the submachine gun. You could switch this out with a pistol or really any of medic's other weapons. And this is just to be as supportive to the team as absolutely possible. The heal thrower can heal both with its primary fire as well as its healing darts. So you have two ways of healing people. And if that's not enough healing, you can switch over to the medic submachine gun or pistol, whatever you chose. You could also go something like the shotgun to have a bit more damage that way. And this way you could heal even more. Because by the time you can heal with these, switch to the other one, heal with them, and then spray out, you can probably switch back to your submachine gun and spray some more healing darts towards your teammates. The heal thrower can also, of course, kill enemies. It does good damage to them this way, as well as the damage over time effect from the poison, which is pretty nice. It's not the most damaging weapon in the game, but it is pretty nice for its dual utility, especially since, okay, we gotta heal this guy. He's still not healed enough. We gotta heal him even more. Now just imagine that was your teammate, not a guy you were violently killing. This setup is very strong for just keeping your team alive, so long as they are close to you. If they wander off a bit, then the heal thrower is not as useful. This really excels in indoor maps. If you're playing anything like Voltaire Manor or Catacombs, anything like that, the heal thrower is amazing because you can just keep all of your team right next to you and then heal everybody up. The submachine gun is great for killing all these little guys. Neither of these weapons particularly need upgrades. They're good with them, but they don't need them. And with these two weapons in particular, you're still left with 5 weight. So you can take a more offensive weapon if you want more damage, or you could take yet another medic weapon and really just never run out of heals, which is pretty nice. Alright, now the second loadout I would recommend for medic is a pretty straightforward basic one, but it is pretty strong, and that is going with the Hemogoblin and really any other medic weapon that you want. I find it best if you pair it with either the medic shotgun or either the medic ARs, whichever one you like more. You can take any of them. All of these weapons work pretty well together, and what you're going to mostly be doing with this is using, well, if you have the shotgun, for close range and medium range and even out to long range, because the shotgun is pretty accurate, and using the Hemogoblin whenever there's anything large. This really helps out the team a lot. Whenever it comes to strikes or flesh pounds that they want to focus down, because enemies get slowed by the Hemogoblin's effect. They also do reduce damage, and they bleed out over time, which is pretty nice. Now the bleed out effect will wear off if you're not constantly hitting them with darts. The darts do have a little bit of a travel time, so you do kind of have to get used to that if firing them at long range. It's very similar to the shotgun, which is also partially why I recommend taking them with the shotgun. That way you don't really get as confused by the bullet travel time. But as you can see, the Hemogoblin can just melt away pretty much anything that's in your way. It works pretty well against everything. The medic ARs work quite well against small enemies. The medic shotgun works pretty well against everything. Whether they be small, medium, or large enemies, all are pretty fair game for the medic shotgun. It is also quite accurate at long range compared to other shotguns, so don't be afraid to try to really reach out and touch somebody with it. I just like the previous build. This one works really well with upgrades, but they're not needed. If you go with the medic shotgun and Hemogoblin, you could also go with something that's 2 weights. You could go with a Desert Eagle if you want as well, or a medic pistol if you want to take. Alright, so the third build is a little bit of an odd one, but it's this one. This is a defensive and offensive weapon for medic. So this is going with the HRG insertion rifle. This is the railgun, so it's a single shot, although you can use the healing darts to kill enemies. They also punch through all enemies, so if you need to, you can punch through these to kill enemies and heal allies. And then going with the Hemoclobber as your secondary. This seems like a weird combination, and it sort of is. It does take time getting used to. But this is probably your best defensive option overall, because the Hemoclobber allows you to block and parry, which is fantastic, as well as it will allow you to heal all allies in the vicinity, as well as yourself, and kill all enemies. It's very strong against crowds of enemies, as you can kind of see. This crawler wave was quite convenient. Using the railgun, you largely want to use it against larger enemies to the best effect. You can use its secondary fire to kill small enemies, and with this loadout you still have 3 weight, so you could go with even more damage if you wanted something like C4, or you could go with a more defensive option and go with medic submachine gun. That way you could also heal the team. Kind of an unconventional loadout. It can probably deliver the most amount of healing to your team out of any of your sets, barring maybe using up all your medic grenades and shooting out like a bunch of medic grenades from the medic AR. I think that would be about the only way you could potentially do more healing than this loadout. Come on down here, big guy. So as you can see, this does do initial damage as well as damage over time. And that's not just because I'm running the acidic rounds with it. One thing you can do is fire the healing darts in between. I find this to be pretty useful if you're rapid firing this. Fire these 2, fire 1 shot, reload, fire another shot, and then your healing dart should come back up to get another 2 hits in on somebody. This is how I generally use it against bosses, and I find it to be pretty useful this way. I really want to keep us healed so we don't die, huh? Medic grenades are, of course, extremely useful. You can throw them in front of you where you're going. This way that you get all of the buffs if you're running any of the buffs with the medic grenades, as well as it just creates a pretty safe zone for your allies. The fourth loadout that I'd recommend for medic is this, going with both the medic ARs. This is pretty much for all of the crowd control that you could ever want. The 501 medic assault rifle, this one, the bigger one, has the medic grenade launcher that fires out medic grenades. These apply all the same effects as the standard medic grenades do, and it works pretty much the same as most of the other assault rifles, as you can kind of see. And then the 401 medic assault rifle works very similar to most medic weapons, where it has healing darts, and it pretty much just acts like a standard assault rifle. This is a build that's mostly set up to deal with small enemies and medium enemies. This can work at pretty much any range, but this loadout doesn't do particularly well against large enemies. This is best for setting up safe zones for your team, especially if you get something like this. We're getting a lot of very convenient rounds this time. If you have a defend the area, medic grenades are some of your best friends, because enemies generally can't get within, well, anywhere of your team, especially if you have a choke point like this. Put a medic grenade there and nothing can walk through it without having to eat the medic grenade. And as you can see, if anything small like crawlers or stalkers or clots get in here, it really doesn't matter. They will die very quickly from that. You're also essentially creating an escape for your team too, which is very handy. Because if things start going really bad, like a bunch of flesh pounds start pouring into here, creating an area like this that your team can fall back to, like, okay, everybody get into the healing gas, you know, this is going to be very helpful. You can do this both with the regular grenades as well as the grenades from the rifle. It's also very good for just not letting you die very quickly. So if things go really bad, there's a good chance you will just survive because you can out-heal anything hitting you, which is pretty nice. It's not something you always want to rely on, but it is pretty handy to keep a couple medic grenades just in case something like that does happen. Alright, and then the fifth and final loadout that I'd recommend for medic is the combat medic. This is just going with, I recommend 2 healing weapons with this, and then going with 1 really high damaging weapon. For this I picked the RPG. You can pick really whatever you want though. You could pick the regular railgun, you could pick the multi-barrel, or the 6-shot grenade launcher, you could pick the kaboom stick. Really any, you could even pick the 50 cal rifle too. The 50 cal rifle is a bit more tricky because that pretty much means that you're only running the medic SMG then, or the medic pistol with something like a Desert Eagle with it, which is okay, that can work, but it's not really the most ideal in my opinion. You should probably be trying to have 2 medic weapons to keep your team healed up, and then still having your high damaging weapon. Now, medic really doesn't need to stay on perk. They don't need to only go with medic weapons, which is why I recommend this one, and why it's super flexible. If you want the most flexible weapon, I would probably recommend something like the kaboom stick that only weighs 6. That way you have more options to take. You can pick something like the medic AR then if you want that, or the one with the grenade launcher. This is really strong against big enemies though, because you do have something that can potentially just one-shot things like Skrakes and Flesh Pounds, which is super useful for your team. Just remember to switch back and forth between your medic weapons. You're mostly going to stay on your medic weapons with this build, to be clear. Your primary job is still to heal people and to kill small enemies, not necessarily to take out large things, but this can do that. You could also go with C4 if you want potentially the most weight advantage weapon, although you do only get 3 of them. So that one comes with an a disadvantage as well. You know, advantage, you get a lot of damage in a little package. Disadvantage is that you don't get very many of them, and you're probably going to be scrounging for ammo bags. But as you can see, it takes care of Skrakes no problem. That's just the raw power of the RPG. That's no perks or anything that's doing this. You can also take dual 500 Magnums with this, or dual Desert Eagles. There's a lot of options you can take with the combat medic. You can really realistically take any weapon you want with medic and probably be okay. I would recommend, once again, always taking at least 2 weapons that can heal. Unless all of your heals are on point, you know what your team's doing, in which case you could get away with just using a medic pistol for healing everybody. Whoops. Especially if you have multiple medics. But assuming you are the primary medic on your team and you want to be helping out your team as much as possible, I would recommend 2 medic weapons. Medic, in my opinion, probably is the strongest class in the game for multiplayer, and a pretty strong class in solo as well. To me, it's a very fun class to play. I really like all of their weapons, and you can really mix and match any of their weapons with any of their other weapons, and most of them will work out just fine. Just try to play a bit safe, try to be actively healing up your teammates, and you should do fine with medic. So thanks everybody for coming out here and watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Next time we're going to be talking about demo, which that one's a lot of fun. If you guys are new here, consider subscribing. That way you get notifications whenever I post any of these videos live, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Till then, stay cool and bye.